Whew. Well, I guess it's time. There was a beautiful, beautiful flower. This flower was born and raised in Alphabet City, New York City. I'll never forget when I met her. She was almost a dream come true for me. She was a lighter complexion young lady, gentle heart, always compassionate to those around her. Her mother was a darker complexion of her, and you can tell they had struggle and strife between the two of them, but there was definitely love, genuine love. My uncle was mistreating me, and when he met her and she came into our lives, she made things better for me, although I did not know that this would be to her own demise. She was in love with him. To her, he looked like Curtis Blow, and I understood that there was definitely a resemblance back then. He had a swagger, and he had a gentle side, a quiet side, but he was a narcissist. You see, back then, nobody knew what that meant. No one knew what that really was, but they knew what it felt like. Some people used to say that it was because his mother stopped breastfeeding him too soon. But I mean, she went from a woman with beautiful hair, beautiful complexion, to a battered woman who had to wear a scarf around her head because he would pull her hair when they'd fight. He was very abusive and very jealous. She couldn't so much as take a glance in another direction without him assuming that something was plotted behind the view. She had beautiful children by him as well, and they were also abused. I'll never forget the youngest. One day, to tell the story, you have to also look at the drugs. He started taking drugs, and he started influencing her to take drugs as well as one of his siblings. Between he and his sister Anna, they became her best friends. The only problem with all of this was if two people are focused and living in a negative mindset, how could they be your best friends? They became her best friends because she said, wow, he has a sister. He had more than one sister, but this was the sister who was willing to do anything to make her brother happy. It wasn't just making her brother happy. It was like there was a competition among siblings. And sometimes the competitions weren't good. And the nieces and nephews looked up, the nephews looked up to him as well. And he wasn't setting such a good example. He would drink, he would smoke, he would do all sorts of devious things. You know, put a firecracker underneath you when you're sleeping, crazy things. I remember one time trying to hide from him before he got my aunt as his wife, before they got married. Before they met, I should say. I was hiding from him because I knew he was due to come in that door anytime soon, and I didn't want to have to deal with the wrath because he was always angry with me. He only had to look in my direction. He seemed to be upset. So I climbed under the bed to hide, and my hair got caught up in the spring, and he pulled the bed and dragged me so my hair was being pulled from my scalp. And no matter how much you screamed or cried, no one else could help you. Because if anyone jumped in, they would get the wrath of it as well. The saddest part is that when they got married and they started having these children, the children observed this behavior. The boys got it the worst. Because if you look at both of his sons, they're very angry. The youngest one doesn't show his anger in his words. he shows his anger in his behavior and will do anything for $1. It's a sad state of affairs when you bring children into this world and you don't learn right from wrong, so you're unable to teach them. So because they are not prepared for the real world outside, they tend to make very, very bad decisions, and they tend to do anything for $1. It is important that we look at these things before we decide to bring children into this world. My aunt died, and when I had to visit her that last time before she died to find out the sickness that she had shriveled up to someone that you could not identify. But because I knew what she once looked like, I could still see that beautiful rose. That beautiful rose that grew up in Alphabet City. It is so important that we teach our youth better so that they don't end up having to live out the same consequences. When you don't love your children, when you don't show your children love, they look for love in all of the wrong places. And when they find what they think is love, it can easily be snatched away, and they can be a product of their environment. A product of their environment. And that product looks nothing like a rose. I loved her. I love her to this day, and I'll never forget her. The thing that I remember most is how she loved Fleetwood Mac, Dream. In that song, if you listen to Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, you will know that song she was singing to him every day of their relationship, trying to leave a man that she could not leave because spell work was done as well. That's the untold story. I always love you, Aunt Pat. Indigo Moon.